You want someone to laugh at? So here I am, editing a video on the newest hero coming to Predecessor, Bayle the Betrayer. We were only given a short story of his origins, so I'm here trying to glean every hidden message between the lines that I can for a breakdown, right? A story of what's to come. I go to the kitchen to make myself a quick ham sandwich, and I come back to a live stream of the Predecessor 1.9 dev stream. You know what? Well, this video was basically going into the story of Bayle, as well as some assumptions, which I was mostly right with, may I add. But stay tuned because right after this, I'm releasing a deep dive into this new guy. He looks promising. Omeda's finally done it again. With patch 1.9 on the horizon, they've dropped a brand new teaser story that's got the whole community buzzing. And we finally know the name of our next hero, Bayle the Betrayer. Now, before we start theory crafting his abilities or guessing his lane, let's go through exactly what we know so far, because the lore they gave us isn't just flavor text, it's full of hints. The post opens with the steep hills and demon rifts La Silmara behind us, we're venturing into the unknown, an uncertainty we haven't faced in months. Who is the new hero, and where will they take us? This tells us we've officially moved past the Silmara chapter. That was Akron's world. Now we're stepping into something completely new. It feels like a turning point in Predecessor's lore, maybe even the start of a darker era. Next, Omeda writes, "Today, we're very excited to reveal our next hero's name and share a snippet of their story." Pretty straightforward setup, but the key part here is a snippet of their story. That means this isn't the full picture. We're getting a teaser, just enough to set tone and build hype, but there's clearly more lore behind Bayle we haven't seen yet. This could be the starting point for a slew of new heroes for all we know. Bayle the Betrayer is a skilled, battle-hardened warrior who once roamed from town to town with his brother, slaying monsters and men alike for coin. So, he's not a noble hero. He's a mercenary, a sword for hire, someone who's seen a lot of bloodshed and probably carries a lot of emotional baggage. The fact that he's called Bayle the Betrayer immediately sets up a tragic backstory. Even before we know what he did, that title tells us whoever he did wrong by are central to his character. But here we get to the turning point that may be the reason he earned his name. One night, their path took a disastrous turn. Ambushed by a band of swordsmen, Bayle's brother was slain in the chaos. Overcome with grief and fury, Bayle went berserk, massacring their attackers in a storm of blood and steel. This is the moment everything changes clearly. Although we have to ask, was Bayle known as the Betrayer before this point? This passage is raw emotion, grief, and vengeance mixed together, and it paints Bayle as someone who's capable of terrifying violence when pushed too far. The imagery here, a storm of blood and steel, that's the kind of line that screams a berserker fighter archetype. He's not going to be a caster or marksman. This is a hands-on melee powerhouse who fights like a man possessed. I'm thinking Terra, but less sword and shield, more greatsword. But this is only one half of the story we have. The lore takes a darker twist. That act drew the gaze of a dark, ancient sorcerer lurking in the shadows. For reasons known only to them, they bound the soul of the fallen brother into his weapon. Now this is where it gets interesting. The dark and ancient sorcerer element is the first introduction of magic, specifically corruptive magic, into Bayle's story. And binding his brother's soul into his weapon? Does this tie in with the title of Betrayer? He clearly was not in his right state of mind at the moment. Either way, that's not just lore flavor. That's clearly mechanic design inspiration. We could see something like a weapon that talks to Bayle, gets stronger as it consumes souls, but either way, this is definitely the most unique weapon we've seen so far on Predecessor. Omeda tends to turn those tropes into playable systems, so don't be surprised if this becomes a real gameplay feature. But wait, there is more. Reading further, we see the double edge to this sword. It was both a blessing and curse. The weapon grew immensely powerful, yet with every swing, Bayle was forced to relive his loss. As the blade drank deeper and deeper of blood, the spirit within twisted, corrupted by violence and dark magic. What should have been eternal rest became endless torment. This paragraph gives us the emotional and thematic state of Bayle. With his strength literally built on his suffering, it seems the more he fights, the worse the curse gets, both for him and his brother's trapped soul. Mechanically, that could translate to risk-reward gameplay, power at a cost. Lore-wise, it's tragic. Gameplay-wise, it could be incredibly fun. Finally, we reach the conclusion of his short introduction. Bayle fights on, his heart torn by grief, carrying both his brother's spirit and the creeping curse that infects him. He longs for release, for his brother's freedom, and for his own suffering to end. But until that day, countless battles await, and the curse threatens to spread. This part did confuse me a bit, not gonna lie. I don't understand how he has a creeping curse, but maybe I'm misreading it. Maybe they're talking about the brother's curse. And that last line, the curse threatens to spread, suggests even more that this may be a character that scales with time in the game, similar to Rena. But, as we saw in the first few lines, the Rena Acheron arc is over. If we really take a step back, maybe this curse isn't just his burden. Maybe it becomes a new arc for Predecessor's world, a spreading corruption that could tie into future heroes or even future maps. So, what could this mean for gameplay? What we all want to know, right? Well, putting together what we have, Bayle is a melee fighter through and through, but he's bound to a cursed weapon powered by his brother's soul. This could introduce some ranged attacks in the form of corruption magic, but imagine if Bayle uses this dark energy his brother has accumulated to protect himself. The idea of a tank that uses magic for defense is new, right? Not to mention, that's literally putting my brother's keeper to good use. His story hints at a kit that uses something, whether it be rage, blood, or corruption, as a resource, growing stronger as he fights. But if this is the case, then he is the first hero of his kind, right? In Paragon Overprime, I remember the release of Boris. It completely shook things up, as he was the first hero that made use of a resource outside of mana. He had energy. Just going off of that, and where Overprime ended up, suffering drawbacks for a resource change like that is absolutely essential. The last thing we need is more complaints of an overpowered hero. As for roles, I can imagine this would be an off-lane/jungle type of hero. While our last hero, Acheron, also fit this role perfectly, I personally think we have plenty of space for new brawlers in Predecessor. There is a lot of unexplored territory in the area of great sword-wielding warriors. We only really have Kwang, and he gives off the complete opposite vibe of what Bayle is giving off. If not, where else could he be? You can never be too sure with Omeda. An augment that completely switches the roles of a hero is something they've done before, right? Omeda are full of surprises, but off-lane and jungle, that's what I'm betting on. Leave a comment below if you think otherwise. Alright, enough theorizing for this video at least. Let's sum up what we know. Bayle the Betrayer is a cursed warrior fueled by grief and rage, wielding a weapon that literally contains his brother's soul. Everything about his lore screams power, tragedy, and corruption, and his gameplay will probably reflect that same balance between strength and self-destruction. Otherwise, why would that be the one piece of info they give us? This arc of Predecessor is clearly leaning harder into dark fantasy and emotional depth, and Bayle's arrival feels like the start of a new tone for the game. Drop your theories below. I'll be reading every single one. And when we finally get the full reveal, you better believe we'll be breaking down his kit piece by piece. So make sure you're subbed if you don't want to miss it. Till the next video, guys. Stay safe and stay ready.